Hello again, everybody. And once again, we'd like to welcome you to another Saturday evening of Embracing Boundlessness. And this evening, we'll have another session with Chuck and Desetu. It's kind of going to be a mix between myself and Desetu. And if you're familiar with Desetu's energy, you will be familiar when that shift occurs. And if not, you may be scratching your head, but we probably won't announce when those things occur. It'll just be a flow between the two. And as pretty much everybody here knows, this session is kind of a follow up of last session. Some of the things we were talking about yesterday and during the question period, someone asked a question and there was a certain direction of information that was shared in regard to that. And so there was a choice that was made then to continue that today, to add to it a little bit and to maybe provide a context within which to place it. So, yeah. So, we'll wait maybe just another minute before we actually get started. Um, I guess what we will say, well, we'll wait for that. Yeah. Well, someone's feeling insistent. So I guess we'll go ahead and start things off. So, as was mentioned, there was a direction that was expressed in the last session that we thought would be interesting to continue in tonight's session. And perhaps, depending on what is shared tonight, we may continue it for another session. In some regards, similar to what we did with all of you in expressing some of your experiences around your own growth. And that sometimes there's only so much that can be shared at one particular time. And so sharing it over several sessions can be helpful. So we would like to begin with perhaps a type of a metaphor. So you're aware as you consider your planet that you have quite a bit of water on your planet, oceans, you call them. And even though you give them individual names, the Pacific Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, the Indian Ocean, Arctic, and so forth, they all in fact flow together. And so if you think of the water that comprises those oceans, and if you think in terms of the molecules of water that comprise those oceans, there are many, many, many molecules of water that comprise those in comparison to the way you view things, those very large quantities of water, a huge number of molecules. Now, you're also aware that within your oceans, there are currents that move in particular patterns. And that water moves, it mixes that water, and each of those currents, because they flow in particular places in your oceans, have perhaps what we'll call particular characteristics to them. They flow past certain land masses. They flow in various areas of your oceans that are various temperatures, sometimes mixing water with other areas of your oceans. But you can recognize these currents as opposed to the molecules of water, which make up the entirety of the ocean. So, in this, we begin like this because it helps you to understand a little bit more, perhaps, our next statement. And in that, we'll suggest that consciousness basically expresses itself in two ways. It expresses itself like the molecules of water, where all of consciousness is composed, as all of your ocean is, by molecules of water. All of consciousness is composed by, perhaps we would call it, some say, links of consciousness. Others have used other words for that. Foundational aspects of consciousness. And then there are those aspects of consciousness that carry a personality tone with them. And we term those aspects essence, which is what you are as essence. Similar to the currents, perhaps, that move through your oceans. They have a particular personality to them, a particular type of flow. They can be recognized one from the other because their tone is different. So, let us say that as essence, on your journey in your exploration of consciousness, you come upon a dimension, this physical dimension. And as you learn about the way in which that dimension is configured, you choose to experience that dimension. And in it, and in that, you become familiar not only with the dimension itself, but with those groupings of consciousness who had, in terms of time, shall we say, the original idea for that particular dimension, this particular physical dimension. Not all physical dimensions, but this particular physical dimension. And these groupings of essences chose as part of the design of this particular physical dimension to bring to the expression of that dimension particular qualities that are expressed within the dimension. Now, as essence, you are explorers and experiencers of consciousness perpetually. You are always creating and experiencing yourself because, of course, you are consciousness. And as you came upon this particular dimension and these groupings of essences that created the template, the design, the blueprints for this reality. And as you chose to participate in the exploration of this particular reality, of course, you don't just extend one part of yourself into the physical reality, but you extend a certain number of yourselves into the physical reality, sometimes quite a large number, perhaps 1,500, 2,000, 2,500. And in fact, those expressions of yourself that you extend into the dimension can vary, and frequently do actually. And as you associate yourself with this physical direction, with this physical dimension, you have, shall we call them, leanings of your own, ways that you would like to explore the dimension. And so, because of your own natural leanings, one or sometimes a couple of these groupings of consciousness are more, shall we say, your cup of tea than some of the others are. In other words, as you explore the dimension, you believe that the flavor of one and on occasion two of these groups would add to your exploration very nicely. So that particular flavor of one of those, and there are 9 of these groups that are associated with this particular dimension. So that particular flavor that you choose as essence to associate with is part then of the flavors, perhaps we shall call it, of all of your focuses, all of your focus personalities, all of your incarnations as they come into this dimension. Then, as part of the design of this particular dimension, and again, you are aware of this when you choose to associate and explore this dimension, what also occurs is you will choose at least one other of these groups for each incarnation. And actually, this is the choice of the expression of you as the whole essence as it moves into the physical dimension. It will choose which of these other groups of consciousness it would like to also add to the flavor again of its expression. And these things are done before you are born in that sense. Now, in this regard, and again, this is not our information. This information flows from, as far as your reality is concerned, 2 other essences who have shared this information. One you know as Seth, another you know as Elias. As we share this information, we are going to begin by sharing it in a simplistic way. So, as you come in, as let's say a newborn, you will have then this foundational flavor of your expression that are associated with one of these 9 that your whole essence has chosen to associate with. And then as the incarnation, you will choose another to layer on top of it. Sometimes you choose more than one, but we will get to that. These you carry with you throughout the incarnation. They will be there, and they will, in that regard, create what we would call, and others have, your intent within the incarnation. A wide flavoring of how you will approach your experiences here. So there are other things that we will mention briefly here as well that you choose to utilize within your exploration as you come into the dimension prior to your birth, your physical birth within the dimension. One of these is the way in a foundational manner that you choose to utilize your perception. There are 3 of these. In one of these, which is the most common of these, and it is the most common because you come into this physical dimension up until this point to have a physical experience. And so this particular foundational orientation to your perception is one where you focus out into the world. You produce things that are tangible in the world in your incarnations. You connect, for the most part, usually easily with other individuals. But again, remember, this is just one of the layers of the way that you perceive. Individuals who chose this particular flavor to the foundation of their perception may be individuals that produce things such as your carpenters, maybe an artist that produces a painting, anybody who produces something that they can show you or they can present to you are individuals that are associated with this particular way of exploring your reality. One of the others is one that these individuals are very, very connected with all individuals on your planet. They are very social individuals. They express a part of their focus, shall we say, externally towards your outer world and a part of it internally towards their inner world. These types of individuals are the individuals who, if there is a war in another part of your world, their response to that war is as if it is happening in the town that they live in. They identify very, very closely with all individuals on your planet and all the things that happen on your planet. And they feel the immediacy of those things because of those connections, regardless of how close they are to them in distance, shall we say. They are very social individuals. You won't find these individuals hanging out by themselves. They like connections. They like connections with individuals perpetually. They have a very difficult time being alone. Then another foundational way that you can create your perception is individuals who tend to focus primarily within, individuals who focus on themselves. They don't really produce in the way that many individuals on your planet produce. They are, in fact, also the smallest percentage of individuals that express themselves in this way on your planet. They express themselves through things that are very associated with who they are as an individual, sharing of themselves, not in things that they can make tangibly, but just things that flow from who they are. These individuals, because they focus so very strongly, are themselves. If there are conflicts around your planet, they may be aware of those conflicts, but they are not affected by those conflicts. And even if individuals who are close to them are strongly affected by these conflicts, they still do not align themselves strongly with the things that are going on in the reality of that nature because their focus is inward. Their focus is on themselves very strongly. Again, this is a foundational way that they see their reality, a foundational way that they view themselves, that they view others, that they view their world, just as the others are foundational ways that individuals do that. So there are layers to the ways that individuals perceive themselves and the ways that they perceive their reality around them. These flavors to their perception is one of them. Their association with these 9 groupings or 9 families of consciousness are another. And then there is the way that you respond to information. We've mentioned before, as have others, that one of the distinctive qualities of your particular physical dimension is the degree to which you express emotion within your dimension. No other physical dimension expresses emotion to the degree that you do. It is one of, again, the foundational expressions of your dimension, of your physical dimension, as well as the physicality that you express, that experience. Those two things together. That being the case, it is probably not surprising to become aware that most individuals, when they have an experience, their initial response, and sometimes it can happen very quick, to what it is that they involve themselves in, what it is that they perceive, is an emotional response. Another large group of individuals on your planet respond to the things that they are interactive with with their thought processes first, initially, before they bring in anything else. Now, they may have an emotion very shortly after the thought, or the other way around. If you express yourself or if you respond initially through the emotion, you may use thought very quickly after the emotion. Sometimes you have to pay close attention. But there is a difference. And of course, they provide different experiences for you. Thought, as we have mentioned before, is a mechanism that you use to interpret and translate the information that comes to you. Emotion is more associated with the information. Then there are two much smaller groups of individuals. These individuals, when they perceive information, when they bring that information to themselves, one group does it by associating that information with all of the rest of their essence as themselves, as well as all of what maybe you know as all that is. And they will come to that information through a feeling that they have within themselves, which is different than emotion. Another group, again, that is much smaller than the thought or the emotional focus group is a group that connects with all other essences throughout consciousness as they have information come their way. And the initial thing that shows up for them is a sense of the situation, the circumstances, and the event, which is a little different than the feeling state. And so we mention these things as we begin to mention these 9 pools, groupings, or families of consciousness to give you some idea of, again, the unique ways that you set yourselves up to have experiences within this physical dimension. And each of your incarnations typically chooses a different mix of these ways that they can set themselves up to have their experience. Now, of course, within the experience, what you will also do is you will add beliefs to all of this. So then you have your beliefs and these other ways that you utilize how it is that your perception functions that then are the powerful drivers to how it is you create your reality around you. Why it is that your reflection of your energy shows up the way that it does. So, in our response to Lucy the last time, what we shared is that in this particular session, what we would do is we would describe some characteristics that you will utilize to flavor your reality as you associate with each of these particular families of consciousness as you move into this particular physical dimension and express your incarnations. We will also express that a number of these families of consciousness, as they interact with your physical world, input information and output information through what we term your energy centers and what others might term your chakras. So we will very briefly mention a little of that as well. So we will begin with what you consider to be your lowest energy center, with the color typically of red. And the naming of this particular group, and we will utilize the names because both of the individuals that shared this information in an extensive way used the same names, beginning, of course, with Seth. And so in that, to be consistent with information that the collective on your planet is already familiar with within themselves, and then reinforced by this other essence as they again shared this information and utilized exactly the same labels and names. We will not deviate from that as well. So this first grouping has been termed Milumet. These individuals are focused on, as you moved into your physical reality, and especially as you focused more and more deeply into it and focused more on your physical experience, what these individuals do for all of you is help you to remember those spiritual aspects of who and what you are as essence. They are, by and large, typically uninterested in being effective in the outer regular world. They tend to focus more inwardly. Historically, many of these individuals have expressed themselves as your Native Americans, your Aboriginals, and other groups of individuals around your world who your cultures understand were very immersed in expressing these types of ideas. Now, of course, these individuals are found in many, many individuals on your planet. But again, you will find these individuals not having a lot of interest in involving themselves in the world as most people see it and understand that it should be interacted with. They like quieter lives. They like lives where they can focus within themselves. The jobs that they choose are not usually jobs that demand a lot of them, but very simplistic jobs. They are not concerned with getting ahead in the world. They have a different viewpoint on their reality. And sometimes they don't even understand why that is, many times, in fact. As we express these groups, we will also express how their tendencies in their own exploration of self typically functions. This particular group, we will add something after we add this about this particular group. This particular group are those individuals that gain information easily through dream time, through what they call vision quests. They also historically have gained information through interactions with expressions like angels or other dimensional beings. They also, because they are quite connected to nature, you will find these individuals interactive with plants, rocks, and animals and gaining information from them in the way that individuals may gain information from Seth or Bashar or Abraham or Chris. The same type of information is shared. Dreams to them are not a symbolic thing. They are as real as this is. Now, in speaking of these 9 groupings of consciousness, each of these groups of consciousness also expressed essences that chose never to become physical on your planet. And there is one exception of that that is temporary in nature, and it is associated with a very special event that's occurring on your planet, which is your shift in consciousness. But otherwise, each of these groups express a particular group of essences that never express themselves physically. And in that regard, they are always associated with this physical dimension. And they act as providers of information, as helpers, as guides, and they show up in various ways and provide that information in various ways depending on the family, the grouping of consciousness, the pool of consciousness that the essence has chosen to align with as they moved into the exploration of this physical dimension. Now, sometimes that effect will be had for the choice that the focused personality has as it moves into the incarnation as well, especially in one instance, and we will share that a little later. So, with this first group, those individuals that chose to express themselves, perhaps we'll say as spirit, to never express themselves physically, and to help individuals within your physical dimension, they aid those individuals within dream time. They come to individuals in visions. They show up as angels. They express themselves through rocks and grass and trees and the wind and animals to that group that's associated with them. These are the ways that they choose to share information about those non-physical spiritual aspects of who you all are. Moving one step up, shall we say, and this is only in reference to what you would call your orange energy center. This particular group of consciousness, this particular family of consciousness, are those individuals that are great initiators of ideas. They are very good at pulling information from those deeper parts of themselves in particular ways and sharing it with the physical dimension in ways that initiate things in a powerful way. They may initiate religions. They may initiate societies. They may initiate different ways of thinking about things. They may initiate different movements within science, within art, within literature. They are not very flamboyant individuals. You may know of them, but they are not seeking the limelight. They too also gain information in a very powerful way in dream time. Dreams to them are, again, just like this reality. They interact with these non-physical individuals from this particular grouping of consciousness. They are called Gramada. And they gain information through dream time. They also gain information through powerful inspiration, where thoughts pop into their head and they are aware that the thoughts came from someplace else. And again, the information that they obtain in these ways is like the information that somebody might gain when they're listening to Seth or listening to Chris or any of the others. It is information about the nature of their being. It is an information that shares with them ideas that they then share with your physical dimension to initiate movements, to begin different movements on your planet. Sometimes to make things more efficient and effective on your planets. As we move again to another energy center, your yellow energy center, this particular group of consciousness has been termed Vold. These individuals love change. They love to bring about change. These individuals cannot sit still. They like to change themselves. They like to change their environments. They like to change where they live. And if you allow it, they would love to change you. They are very emotional individuals. They are quite dramatic frequently. They also connect well with individuals, being very understanding of the way that other individuals feel. And in that, can move to help them make changes or can then perhaps try to change things. These individuals many times may show up in your societies when you're just initiating great change in your societies, regardless of what that change is. They were and still are, to a degree, a part of your shift, initiating your shift, bringing in new ideas, helping to mix change, helping to utilize the energy of emotion to move change forward for all of you. These individuals gain their information from those individuals of the group they are associated with that chose never to be physically focused in a very unique way. They hear voices. They may be walking down a sidewalk and a building may talk to them, or a tree may talk to them, or a cat may talk to them, the mailbox may talk to them, or they just might hear the information out of thin air. But they audibly, not the voices in your head, but audibly, they hear voices. And these voices will direct them in actions that help to bring about change in whatever way that might be expressed. They do not typically use thought processes when this information shows up for them. It is a feeling thing. And as they attempt to explain what it is that they may be feeling, they frequently struggle with their ability to translate because it's a deep felt thing that frequently cannot be translated into thought. Because they are so very emotional and enjoy drama so much, and because they have this proclivity for gaining information the way that they do, they can seem to be a little odd in your society. But it depends, of course, on where they have chosen to make their expressions known. Moving up one more level to the green energy center is a group that has been termed Ilda. These individuals are great communicators. They are very personable, very likable usually, very talkative usually. These individuals share information between various countries, between various states, between various organizations. They bring change to various places on your planet by sharing information. And they will show up throughout history in those roles where they move around. They might be gypsies, they might be slaves, they might be pirates. They may be individuals in your current culture that travel quite a bit. Or maybe now that you have your internet, they simply express information in various ways through your internet that impact other cultures, ideas that in those cultures are not common yet. Throughout your history, this particular group of individuals has helped to keep your cultures from growing old and stifling, mixing new information in to your cultures, to various peoples. These individuals gain their information through those essences associated with that group who do not express themselves physically in ways that in your cultures you consider to be mythological type beings or other beings that very strongly catch individuals' attentions. Fairies, dragons, unicorns, other dimensional individuals, in your present day extraterrestrials. They will utilize whatever type of expression of those types will strongly catch somebody's attention. Because then, of course, what do individuals do? They share their experience with those very unusual beings that they've interacted with and the information that they gained from them. So this particular group uses those types of mediums to again share information that again you might gather from Seth or Elias or Abraham or anybody else. They do it through those mediums. Now, sometimes those particular expressions are an expression of your own essence. And again, remember, your essence is vast. Your essence contains numberless dimensions. You express yourself as the human race within this dimension, and there are numberless dimensions. Any individuals from those dimensions you would consider to be extraterrestrial, because they are not from your local neighborhood, of course. Moving up one higher to the blue energy center is a group that has been termed Tumold. So this particular group, as an expression of individuals, express themselves differently depending on whether the incarnation is expressing the energy that the whole of the essence has aligned with. In other words, if your essence aligns with this particular group, the Tumold, there's a particular way that you will express yourself foundationally in your life. If instead the focus personality chooses to align itself with this particular group, the way that that expression happens is different. If the individual, if their essence is associated with this group, the way that they interact with other individuals, and sometimes they may not even know that they're doing this, is to help them to return to their natural state of being. And in that can mean a return to your larger awareness of self, or it can mean to return to just the natural way that you are as an individual. And they do this within the, shall we say, subconscious or unconscious layers of themselves. They help in that way, usually behind the scenes, typically. Now, if on the other hand, if you choose as the incarnation to associate with this group, your expression is much different. In that expression, you will be very drawn to help people in a healing capacity, whether it's a doctor, a nurse, a therapist, any of the types of body workers that exist, any of the types of individuals in metaphysical circles that attempt to help people in all the spiritual ways that they do. Anything like that, where individuals attempt to heal another individuals. And usually these individuals will be quite focused on the manner in which they do this, as well as the results that they are having. The individuals who their essence are associated with this are really unconcerned with the results. They're really more focused on just bringing the individual to an awareness of what the more natural flow of themselves is, without doing anything in particular to bring that about, besides just sharing that awareness, as well as they share an energy. Now, if you are one of those individuals whose essence belongs to this, you can have any kind of a job. You may be a garbage man, and as you interact with the individuals on your route, your energy is affecting them in what we'll say a positive way in that regard, helping to balance the individual out. And you may have no knowledge that you're doing this actually. As we move further up to the purple energy center, these groups of individuals have been termed Zuli. And within your physical dimension, they are very focused on their physical expression. These are the individuals in your world that are your bodybuilders, your dancers, any individuals that take great pride and express themselves with their body. Gymnasts are like this. Your sports figures, whether it's basketball players, football players, soccer players, whatever it might happen to be, individuals who express through their physical form. They know their physical form well. They are very attentive to their physical form. They may adorn their physical form quite a bit. But it is through that that they express themselves. Now, these individuals, if they are associated with that particular group, gain information through the appreciation of people's physical expressions. They may go to a ballet, and a ballet will move them, and they will gain energy, and they will gain an experience by watching that ballet that individuals who are not associated with this group will not have. Information will come to them. They might go to, let's say, a bodybuilding contest. And in their deep appreciation of what's being expressed, again, energy flows to them, information flows to them in a way that does not happen with other individuals. There may be those amongst you that as you walk in nature, you gain tangible information in nature. There may be other aspects, other individuals here that as you do this, sometimes you understand the symbolism, but you're not in those moments given large amounts of deep information. And so again, each of these groups gain information from individuals in ways that others typically don't, although some utilize similar techniques, similar ways. And again, when an individual is watching somebody express themselves physically and they gain this information, it is again because these individuals who are non-physically associated with these groups are involved with that interchange of information. Then there is another group of individuals that are associated also with the area of your body, loosely speaking now, that you would call the chest. And they express themselves in the color of pink. These individuals are the individuals on your planet that are very focused on producing children. They are also those individuals that are quite involved in children. They are quite taken by children. They love children. The way that children are raised are very important to them. The things that children are exposed to, that are nurturing to them, are very important to them. Some of these individuals, usually a great deal of these individuals, will have quite a number of children. And they are very good parents in that regard. They are very practical parents. They will raise their children to understand the world. And the individuals who choose to be born to these parents will usually be very balanced individuals because the parents will be balanced individuals. Now, in your personal interactions with one of these parents, you may not see them to be perhaps that compassionate or that understanding. But when they're with children, they are very different. Sometimes individuals within this group may not have children, but work in fields and express themselves with children in very nurturing ways. Or they can lend energy to other individuals that are having children in this regard. These individuals gain information through the children. When a child speaks to them about experiences that they've been having, they hear things that other individuals do not hear coming from the child. And again, this is the expression of those individuals associated with that group that do not express themselves physically in your dimension, yet are associated with your dimension always. They express that information to individuals that are associated with this group, whose essence is associated with this group through children. This is their mode of sharing information. This is those individuals' way of gaining that information. There is one group that remains. The color that they are associated with is black, and they are called Sumafi. These individuals are those individuals who tend to take teaching type jobs in your world. Their impetus in your societies is that of attention. They are great focusers on detail. They like to make sure that things are shared correctly. They like to make sure that as information is translated and transferred, it is transferred and translated in an accurate way. However, they do enjoy having fun, and they like to live artful lives as well. They are great experiencers of life also, because if you are going to teach something, you need to understand it through experience first. These individuals, typically those individuals who are non-physically focused, when they share information with this group of individuals, typically do it through expressions that are like Seth or Elias or Abraham or Bashar, or in written form. In this way, the idea is that the least amount of distortion can be had. This is the way that they will express that information. Now, in recognition, through the connections that all of you have in consciousness as you associate yourself with this dimension, regardless, many times, of the family that you're associated with in that foundational way that your essence has aligned with, many times you will be drawn to those individuals that express in this way, because you understand that the information about who and what you are is expressed in a way that is altered to the least degree that it possibly can be, as is expressed within your physical reality. Because, of course, the information being expressed within your physical reality, of course, alters the information. It has to make sense within your reality. But they attempt to stay as close as they can to what that information is all about. In recognition of that, individuals from other families will find themselves attracted to that information, whether it's spoken information or written information, because it helps them to fill in the spaces, shall we say, of the ways that they gather information many times. Now, we also expressed that, and as we were speaking, mentioned that as you come in as an incarnation, you choose at least one of these ways of expressing yourself. And then your essence has chosen one of these ways of expressing itself, and one of these ways of gaining information. And so we will give you an example, let's say. So we believe that we will add to this. With your blue energy center, the individuals called Sumari, These individuals are individuals who like to be in the limelight, individuals who take part in moving ideas forward in your societies through their actions, through the way that they express themselves. They frequently are very colorful individuals. They frequently are not quiet individuals. A group of individuals that you can identify that were in large part, but not totally, of course, composed of these types of individuals were your flower children in your 1960s. As things, as a movement began in your country in particular, and as these individuals carried that movement forward, we will also express to you that the essence that you understand as Seth was associated with this particular grouping of consciousness. Their role, if we might say, was to move energy that was beginning to be expressed within your shifting consciousness and to disseminate it, to share it, to mix it into your culture so that more and more individuals understood it. These individuals like art also as a way of expressing themselves, regardless of what that expression might be. Now, let's say, for example's sake, that you have an individual whose essence aligns with the Sumafi, the individuals who like to be attentive to detail, who don't like a lot of distortion, who enjoy teaching as a result of that. And then, as that individual expresses an incarnation in your physical dimension, they align with one of these Sumari individuals, the artistic type of individuals. So you will then have an individual, let's say they become an artist as far as paintings are concerned. You will have an individual who begins painting, who continues painting, who becomes very good as a painter, and then teaches people how to paint. Where, let's say, an individual who, let's say that their essence association and their incarnation association is Sumari, they will take up painting and they will paint just to express their painting with individuals. They will not have an interest in teaching individuals about painting. Or let's say that you have an individual of the Tumold who are aligned as a Tumold in their incarnation, not necessarily from their essence standpoint. They also may be a painter, but they utilize their painting to help people to heal from various traumas that they've had. They use it in a healing capacity. Or maybe they're a singer and they sing to do the same thing with individuals. Now, all of you, of course, as essence, have all of these aspects within you. You just gravitate to one as the essence a little bit more strongly than you do as others. Now, also, what can be done is you can mix these together. In other words, it's less common for you as essence to choose two of these families to express yourself in a foundational way with, and to then utilize as a guiding for the intents in how you express yourself in your physical dimension. But it happens. It is more common to add an additional family or sometimes more than one additional family as you move into the physical dimension as the focus. So you may find individuals that have various tendencies or a mixture of these tendencies as they express themselves in your physical dimension. And this is purely a choice that they have. So in this, as we've expressed, not only this, but the things that we expressed earlier, you can see the uniqueness that goes into each of your expressions, to everybody's expression. And as you have moved into your shift, a few of the things that you are doing move you in the direction of being more of who you are. Historically, you used to look around you at other individuals and model your life and your behavior after those other individuals. You used to look to authorities for how things should be done, how they should be expressed. These two things you are leaving behind you. You are interested now in an increasing way in your uniqueness. You are less and less interested in individuals expressing how you should express yourself in any way, shape, or form. You are becoming truer to how it is that you want to express your reality, regardless of how other individuals around you are expressing their reality. At the same time, as you move forward into this shift, as you become increasingly familiar with who and what you are, so that the potential tripping points in your life are a little less, accepting those same things in others will be important. Some individuals, let us back up a little bit. One of the other things that you can do as you move into this particular physical dimension is you can choose to associate yourself with and we'll call them in this moment, the representatives of each of these groups that do not express themselves physically. You can choose to have a connection, we'll call it. It's more than a connection. You fold those qualities into yourself in a particular way. It's actually an aspect of who and what you are. You can choose to do that, or you can choose not to do that. All of you here have chosen to do that. If you have chosen to do that, what that will do for you is it will allow your exploration in these areas to have a little more ease to it than those who have not chosen to do that. Doesn't mean that you have more information within yourself about it. It's just that you can move into it easier. Also, you will have a tendency to want to take some sort of a role where you're guiding or leading other individuals versus individuals who feel a little bit more comfortable in, shall we say, allowing somebody else to take the first few steps or allowing somebody else to express the information, and then they become familiar with the information, things of that nature. Even within your expression of sharing your uniqueness, part of your uniqueness may be that you prefer others to take the first step first. Or you may be the one, even in a small group of friends, that you find a little bit more as the leader, perhaps, shall we say. Or it might be somewhat larger groups. It doesn't mean that you need to be recognized by large groups of individuals, that you're leading large groups of individuals. It can be just in your circle of friends. It may be at the gym or whatever it might happen to be. You're the one that suggests certain projects that you can do or certain little challenges that you can do for yourselves, things of that nature. Individuals who have a tendency towards that are associated with these individuals that are associated with these groups that do not express themselves physically. It's not better than another individual. It is just a different experience within your physical dimension. It changes the way that you come to this shift a little bit differently than other individuals do. It is, again, as all things are, a choice in how you chose to experience this physical dimension and your experiences and your exploration within it. Certain individuals within your dimension choose, even within the shift, to express themselves in very physical ways, very physically oriented ways, ways that, to those of you that are expanding into deeper understandings of yourself, can make little sense, especially in consideration of the movement that you're so familiar is going on. Again, there are many, many, many things that are going on, shall we say, behind the scenes as you move through your shift. There are many ways that the actions, activities of others stimulate movements within individuals that sometimes can be very hard for you to understand. For your own movement, acceptance of the way that other individuals express themselves is very important. As we expressed all these various flavorings that you can give to yourself as you explore this dimension, this is one of the largest reasons why we decided to do this in this session and perhaps in others. And that you understand that the uniqueness, your own as well as everybody else's, is to be embraced. Because as you move further into your shift, each individual will express themselves in their own unique way. And of course, in that, there's a uniqueness and a collaboration that will happen simultaneously. It's not something that you're going to need to focus on, shall we say, with your externally focused consciousness in order to get it to work. It will function of its own. So in this, if you have some familiarity with the information that Sheth has shared in this regard, or this other individual of Elias, you may not have any questions with all this. If you haven't, you may. Even if you have, you may have some questions about our understanding of these things. In that, we're certainly open to share any of that. Or if there are other things that you think this may be associated with, whatever it is, if you have some questions, we're seeing Ray's message in this moment. We could do that, in fact. It may take us a little while to do it, but we could do that. And in this, what we will include is we'll include these parts of your perception because they are very much a part of this, as well as whether you tend to lean emotionally or perceive things through thought initially, or some of these other ways that are a part of that. You mix and match many things in your perception of your reality. You do this in all your various incarnations. Now, not only do you have all these other influences that you've built into your expression and your beliefs, but of course you are connected to all of your aspects, all of your probable selves, and other expressions of consciousness as well, perpetually, continually. And there's information that's being conveyed back and forth in that as well. We don't say this to suggest that you complicate your experience. Express yourself in the way that feels natural for you in the moment to express yourself. Understand that that expression flows from many different variables, perhaps we will say. But in trusting of yourself and trusting in what feels right for you to express in the moment that you would like to express it, you will know that you're aligning with all these various ways of expressing in the way that in that moment might be what we would call in this moment the most effective way for you to express yourself. Not that all ways aren't valid. Effectiveness perhaps being expressed as an easier movement through your life, less challenging. So again, if you have any questions, if you have anything that you would like us to expand upon, something that perhaps you would like me to go over once again, we would be happy to do that.
I just want to say thank you, Chuck, because adding more detail to what Seth had presented, or Chuck and to say to, I thought that that was a very interesting, and it allows for greater not only comparison, but realization about the differences between them. Thank you.
Realize that the essence Seth expressed a very powerful movement within your dimension. But in that, they utilized concepts and language that were very new to all of you. And they did it within a context of the belief systems that were powerful for you in the decades that they made their expressions. Now you have moved. Your belief systems have become more flexible. More ideas are part of your reality than were part of your reality then. It is easier for you to add layers to this information than it was then. As you became familiar with that information, perhaps, maybe at the time it was even shared, it took many decades for individuals to become familiar with those concepts and what they meant within their lives. Some still are challenged by that. But all of you, as being part of this dimension and the movement that you've all decided to undertake in this dimension, are widening. You're thinning the veils between this expression of yourself and the rest of whom what you are. You have realizations show up for you that never used to be the case for individuals. And in that, you're able to fold more information into your experience. Again, recall that you explore numberless dimensions. You may, within this dimension, have many, many, many incarnations. None of this means that you limit yourself in the way that you express yourself. You mix and match these things in all of your incarnations. And you express yourself in any way that you want to in all the dimensions that you associate with. If you want to term some of those dimensions as Sasani dimensions, as Palladian dimensions, as Arcturian dimensions, whatever you would like to say, you have many, many, many expressions of yourselves. As you became familiar with this dimension, there was a particular model, a way, a template, a blueprint that was utilized for this particular dimension. In choosing to explore it, you were aware of that. Just like if you would go to another country, you would be aware of the language that would spoke there. You'd be aware of the foods that were cooked there. You'd be aware of maybe the ways that houses were built there. All of those other things. The same was true when you chose to explore this particular dimension. You knew that there was a template to this dimension. And you thought it would be a very interesting dimension to explore. Otherwise, you would not be exploring it. So in that, we will bring to a close what it is that we will share with you tonight. And if you have an interest in us sharing more of this information as we move forward, perhaps in our next session, building on it, again, not only to help you perhaps understand the reason why certain events flow to you, why you seem to express yourself in a way that's different than others around you, why it can be challenging to accept other people's expressions, and to embrace the way that information comes to you. And in that, to help your uniqueness, we'll be glad to offer a little bit more of this information in your next session. So for this evening, we would bid you again a very fond evening and a very interesting exploration. You may find, especially if this information is new to you, that some of the information that shows up for you in dreams and other types of communications, even in your physical world, remind you of the conversation that we had tonight. Hmm. Oh. So I know that at least Wendy and Dave are probably really familiar with this information. Wanda, I'm unsure of. I think maybe not. Jamie, I'm not positive of. Sparkling, probably no. Mm.
Yes, indeed.
I myself, I've had, when I look back at all the things I've done in my life, um, as I started to get into my teenage years, even, what I would do is I would have experiences and then I would teach those experiences. I was very into working out and bodybuilding, and I taught weight training to people. Started when I was 15, men and women both. And then as I was bodybuilding, I would again teach that. And of course, the chiropractic thing is along that line as well. You have those experiences, you learn those things. And not only did I get it, was I still in teaching, but then I associated myself with a different group and was very into healing people as that. But then it changed. In fact, I remember a variety of shifts in my life. Uh, for a while, I was very associated with that group, who's, of course, quite physical, the Zuli group. And I was there when I began college. And I struggled immensely in my first year of college. I was not focused on that way of moving in my life. And then one day, it's like a light switch was thrown. And all of a sudden, it was different. And I decided to associate with another particular group, and it was much easier for me to do that. And as I moved into the chiropractic stuff, of course, then that group, the Tumold group, I was aligned with that. I moved into it as part of the incarnation, and helping people to heal became a very important thing for me. And then I remember in my chiropractic career, as I became increasingly spiritually aware of things, I reached a particular point, and this doesn't happen for a lot of individuals who do this. They just fold it into what they do. They fold it into their practice. For me, I lost interest in healing people in that regard. It was all now about just helping people understand who and what they were. I had really no desire to help them move past their physical ailments beyond that understanding of themselves. And so I can look back at my life and I can see these various shifts and others that I went through. Now, a lot of individuals don't do that, but my foundational association is that Sumafi family, the individuals that like to share information and knowledge. And so because of that, I've experienced a lot of things. I became very interested in the stuff that Bashar was sharing for a couple of years. So I become thoroughly associated. I merged with that family for a while, so I could become thoroughly associated with that way of information being shared, so that I can interact with those individuals as I express information. And it's something I recognized in my life a while back. I said, but not in these terms. I said, I've had three phases in my life. I had a very physical phase in my life. I had a very intellectual phase in my life. And then I had a very spiritual phase in my life, you know. And the spiritual phase seems to encompass a lot of it. I still do some physical things. And of course, I still have a certain amount of knowledge that I express. But I saw those things going on. And then as I became familiar with these templates, I guess I'll say, that we choose to associate with as we chose to explore this particular reality, then I understood those qualities a little bit deeper in myself. And I was able to see various things pop up in my life in various times that then I'm going, oh, okay. So, that's associated with it. Not that you really need to know that, because you don't really need to know that. It's just kind of helpful sometimes. And again, the idea being that If you find yourself sticking out as a unique individual compared to people around you, there's a reason for that. You've chosen to explore in a particular way. It's very, very valid, you know? And sometimes great challenges are part of that as well. Because sometimes it's only through the experiences that you can bring that information then forward and share it with other individuals and have a deep impact on those individuals. That's what I found in my life. So helping people understand the validity of their own uniqueness is really a part of why Desetu decided to share this particular information, as well as not only accepting yourself, but accepting other people's expressions of themselves that may be very unique from how you do it. Like individuals who are of the group, the Milumet group, who are those individuals that want to hold the information of our spiritual connections. Many of those individuals in physical reality don't even care about individuals who are great sports figures or express themselves as great dancers or whatever. And those individuals may have no interest whatsoever in the deep spiritual things that are going on in life. They're very focused on just their basketball or just their football or just their bodybuilding or just their dance or whatever it might happen to be. And so they're expressing themselves sometimes in very, very, very different ways. But sometimes they layer those together. So there's lots of permutations that go on with those individuals, as well as the way that your belief systems work and the way that you affect your perception, a whole variety of things, whether you're emotionally focused, thought focused. Like one of those groups we were talking about, the individuals who are the people who like to bring change into societies, revolutions and things like that. Those individuals are very emotional individuals, right? If those individuals, if an individual that's associated with that group is also an emotionally focused individual, then you really have an emotionally and drama-centered individual that's standing in front of you, that's expressing themselves for you. However, if that individual that's associated with those individuals who are into reforming society is a thought-focused individual instead, they approach things a little different. They still have quite a bit of emotion, but their emotion is tempered because they're thought-focused instead. So there's all sorts of mixing and matching that goes on as we choose, as we come into the expression, what flavors we want to bring to our expression, our exploration. And of course, we have, some of us, many incarnations. And so we do that differently with all of our incarnations. Some people will say, well, how come I don't change that within the incarnation? You don't need to change it within the incarnation because you're doing it in a different incarnation in that other way, right? And that's all part of you as that overarching you, the essence you, which is what you are as you explore this reality. And again, I think last time Desetu was talking about one of the things that will be helpful to as we move forward in this is each of us will begin to see ourselves more as a gathering of selves and not just the individual us. In a way similar to you can think back and maybe know yourself as the 15-year-old you, 25-year-old you, the 10-year-old you, whatever. You know that all those yous are part of what makes up this you. You will know yourself more and more like that, but with the other yous. Still, however, maintaining this focus in a sense that this you is still primary in that regard, but you can tap into any of the others anytime you want to. So because this movement is heading in that direction, then these understandings about yourselves can be helpful in that regard. Three of those flavors, the foundational ways that you affect your perceptions, can mean that people have a very difficult time understanding each other. It's almost as if you speak French and somebody else speaks Russian. Many times you'll get in relationships with individuals and you won't find out that you really don't communicate at all until maybe a month, 2, 3 into the relationship when you start to share things and you find out there's no similarities whatsoever in this. They see things very different than how I do, right? And typically that can be what's going on with those individuals. Those relationships can be very challenging for individuals. But of course, it can be difficult to tell, what's going on, especially for individuals whose intuitive abilities are not something that they're developing along the way, where they can, for some reason, know that they can connect with that person. But at the same time, they might be connecting with that person for a challenge that'll be helpful for them to expand themselves. And they may not even know it for the relationship. So there's so many ways, of course, and reasons that we do things. So, yeah. But anywho, any last little thoughts or anything, guys, before we all wave goodbye to each other? You guys think that you want us to add just a little bit more to this to next Saturday, or is a different direction something you think might be fun? Yeah, a little bit more. Okay,
More,
we'll do
please.
that. Yeah, we can do that. And as Ray suggested, we can come up with a little something that we can share that will help. And again, remember that especially in these families or groups of consciousness, frequently, especially in the incarnation, you will utilize a couple of these together. You won't express them in maybe what we'll call in the moment a pure way. So you may see these qualities and you may go, it seems like I got some qualities from this group and some qualities from this group in me. And yes, that may totally be true for you. And some may come to the forefront at certain parts in your life, and others may come to the forefront in other parts in your life. And again, what these tend to do is they tend to frame your intent. In other words, how you would like to explore. In other words, let's say you're associated with the group that is focused on healing. It doesn't say anything about how you're going to do that healing. It just says you're going to be interested in bringing healing. You may heal through art. You may heal as a doctor. You may heal as a nurse. You may heal as somebody who does spiritual type of counseling, many, many, many different ways, right? A veterinarian is an individual who heals, right? Whatever, many, many, many ways. You just have this movement in your life that you're very drawn to, right? And so you have two layers of that. One that your essence has that it shares with all of its incarnations, another as you choose as you move into the incarnation. And again, at least one as you move in the incarnation. Sometimes you choose a couple, which again adds to the experience, perhaps we'll say. Yeah. So we'll continue next time. We'll probably reiterate a little bit of what we talked about today as a reminder before we start to talk about other stuff. And again, really, it's just to stimulate stuff within you that helps you embrace all of who you are and your expressions, as well as a movement into the acceptance of how other people accept themselves too, and not necessarily needing to be thrown by those individuals as they do whatever they're doing, wherever they may happen to be. Help you to stay centered a little bit better in that regard. Allow you to express just you and not so much concern yourself with those other individuals and what it is they're doing or why they're doing it. Because it really doesn't matter why they're doing it. That's their thing. So anyway, it was great, guys, as it always is, of course. And I think it's interesting that this is something that collaboratively, again, we chose to play with for a little while because that's what we're doing. Otherwise, I wouldn't be talking about it. So great. So I will end our recording.